Welcome back, everybody, to What Do You Know with Nick and Devin. I am Devin.
And I'm Nick.
Thanks for being here, everybody. Now, Nick.
Nope. Don't like where that's going.
This is an easy question. Once again, I'm only going to throw you easy questions.
Yeah,
So we've talked about Chicago and New York a lot here.
Yeah.
And I would just like to know, you have more experience with New York City than I do.
Sure.
So I wanted to ask, do you wish Chicago was divided up into boroughs like New York City is? Alternatively, do you wish we use the term borough for Chicago? Because already we have our neighborhoods that are like designated and have their own governments within them. So that's kind of like boroughs are in New York City. I did some research. But I feel like boroughs are larger.
Sure. I mean, I think we kind of created pseudo boroughs with segregation.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, you kind of have like
thanks, Daily.
Yeah, exactly. You have like the north side, northwest side, west side, the loop, south side. You know what I mean?
Okay, that's fair.
I think that what I like differently about borough, or what I like differently about like what we have versus boroughs, is that I think neighborhoods, like it's 77 neighborhoods, I think, like you kind of create a community within that. Not to say that boroughs don't, but I just think the landmass is, because even you have like smaller neighborhoods within those boroughs. Yeah. I feel like it's because we're not an island.
Yeah,
we can do that. But yeah, I just don't like the term boroughs.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
It just makes me like think like under the ground.
Oh. Or
mules. Or mules. Thank you. Very inclusive of you. Son of a bitch. What do you call it? Yeah, I stick with neighborhoods.
Yeah.
77 strong.
No, I agree. Because in my story today, I was going to like diss on boroughs and like have a whole rant about them. And then I was like, oh shit, like this is just a neighborhood. It's not a borough. Egg on my face. So I was like, what the fuck? Like, what is a borough? How many boroughs are there? Blah, 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 blah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
So is New York, to your knowledge, is New York the only city that has boroughs, so to speak?
As far as I felt like I wanted to research.
Okay, as far as your interest took you.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I was like, I don't like... So I feel like with the neighborhoods in Chicago, like there's a little bit of blend at the borders of these neighborhoods. Totally. So it's not so like a hard line.
Yeah.
You can tell that there is a hard line. I mean, there is a highway that goes through some of those neighborhoods.
Yeah, it's a little intentional, huh?
Yikes. Yeah. But I think, like you said, there's a little bit more a stronger sense of community in the smaller neighborhoods as opposed to a larger borough.
Yeah. And can I go on a rant really quick?
Yeah, sure.
What I want to say is
That's what we're here for.
I hate when people make up new ones. I hate when real estate development comes in and is like, this is going to be the platinum gold plus packaged coast, and you're just like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, this is the Disney Plus Gold Coast,
and it's like and it's like a 3-block radius. I'm like, it pisses me off because you're taking away the like respectability and the importance of a neighborhood and a community, and you're just using it to market your real estate, and I just think it's bullshit.
Like, are you going to instate an alderman for this new place you're talking about?
Exactly. And like, I get it. Like, there are, like, within Lakeview, there is Wrigleyville, Lakeview East. There's like different areas within the larger thing.
Right.
But even those places tend to have their own like chamber of commerce. You know what I mean? Right. Like, you creating something for like one Park West, you know what I mean, doesn't give you the right to have
for one condominium. Like, fuck off.
Yeah. Right. Because someone doesn't want to live in Gold Coast. They want to live in the Platinum Coast. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, be okay with Streeterville and shut the fuck up.
It's a trash island.
Right.
It's built on trash. Look it up. We've gone on our rant about boroughs. We like our neighborhoods. Chicago strong.
Yeah.
Fuck you, New York.
This whole episode was just to say
That's it. Thanks for coming in here. All right. No, I actually wanted to ask the titular question. It has nothing to do with neighborhoods. It was just came up during my research.
Gorgeous.
But what do you know about Sara Josephine Baker?
Why does this sound really familiar?
I don't know.
Nothing.
Okay.
As of now.
It'll probably sound a little bit familiar as we go on. And I know that this episode's coming out in July. It is July for you listening right now. But it is still kind of Pride is all the time. So like this is still a Pride episode coming from your dear old dad.
Sara Josephine Baker also sounds like Sarah Jessica Parker. I'm not making that equation. I think Sara Josephine Baker itself sounds very familiar, but I'm just calling that out.
No, that's fair. I had to keep looking at my notes, and like whenever I would think of my topic, I was like, is it Barker or Baker? Like, which fucking is it? It's Baker.
It's Baker.
Baker. Like candlestick maker. So, what do you know about Sara Josephine Baker? Nothing. Great.
Nada.
I'm going to start off with a quote.
Oh, by her?
By her.
Okay.
From her memoir titled Fighting for Life by Sara Josephine Baker.
Thank you.
Quote, the way to keep people from dying from disease, it struck me suddenly, was to keep them from falling ill. Healthy people don't die. It sounds like a completely witless remark, but at the time it was a startling idea. Preventative medicine had hardly been born yet and had no promotion in public health work.
Interesting. Okay, it's getting me there. Is this not the TB episode?
No, it is not. It is not the TB episode. It is a disease-related episode, but it's not TB.
TB, okay.
So Sarah was born in November of 1873 and lived 71 years, dedicating the majority of those decades to her work in the medical field.
Amazing.
She experienced death at a pretty young age. Both her father and brother died of typhoid by the time Sarah was 16. She felt like she needed to help support her mother and sister financially. She was the eldest. So Sarah began her career in medicine.
Okay.
This trauma of typhoid taking her family away.
Sorry, I'm not laughing.
What's funny about typhoid, Nick?
Not laughing about her entire family dying, but Typhoid Mary is Typhoid Mary Mallon. And so I don't know if you know anyone else with the last name of Mallon. And so there is subtle belief that they might have been related to the woman who caused typhoid to run rampant
I actually
in
do
the
talk
US.
about Typhoid Mary.
Amazing. Incredible.
I thought of that as I was typing. I was like, oh, Brian, damn it.
It's like, son of... Yeah,
That's why you came to Chicago.
Yeah, exactly.
Running from New York.
Running from it.
So this trauma of typhoid taking half her family away wound up being the inciting incident that sparked Sarah's destiny in becoming a well-renowned physician. So that's what we're getting into. We're going to talk about Sarah's journey into the medical field and her prominence within that.
I love that, especially turn of the century.
Yeah, it's very exciting. So Sarah attended a medical school for women, the New York Infirmary Medical College, which was founded by Elizabeth and Emily Blackwell. She was very successful in her schooling, earning top marks in all of her classes except one. She failed one of them. She failed the class, the normal child, which was taught by Anne Daniel. Which is funny that like she was able to just succeed everywhere else except just this one class about like children.
Right. She said, fuck those kids.
Right. Surprisingly, she said this failure had her graduating second in her class, but also inspired the focus of her future career.
Could you imagine just one class is what took you away from valedictorian?
I'd be really pissed.
I'd be
granted,
really pissed.
I got a lot of classes that kept me away from valedictorian.
But if it was one, I'd be super pissed. And what about children nonetheless?
Yeah, right.
Bananas.
So after graduation in 1898, Sarah went to the New England Hospital for Women and Children in Boston, where she interned for a year, starting to build up her education.
Nice.
After her internship, Sarah began practicing as a private physician in New York City.
Private physician, as in like people just hired her as, because I guess there's not really like a whole centralized kind of healthcare.
Yeah.
Unit
So I
at this
think
point,
that's
yeah.
just kind of like you opened up your own
Oh,
office
practice.
kind of
Okay.
thing,
Got
or
it, got
like
it.
you did house calls
Calls.
and
Okay.
stuff like that.
That makes sense.
She didn't go to work at a hospital or anything like that. It was just, here is my practice, here's my card. Call me.
What insurance do you think she's accepted?
I don't even know if they had insurance back
No,
then.
of course not.
So 1901, she passed the civil service exam and became qualified to be a medical inspector at the Department of Health.
Oh, nice.
During this time, she was wearing masculine tailored suits, much easier to do your work. And folks even called her Dr. Joe, her middle name being Josephine, Dr. Joe.
Okay.
And she even joked that her colleagues forgot that she was a woman. Now, I don't want to bury the lead here, but it is highly speculated that Sarah was a lesbian.
Okay.
I say speculated because she, not a lot is known about her private life.
Okay.
Private and personal life outside of what she wrote in her memoir, of course.
Got it.
All of her personal papers were destroyed.
Okay.
Either in fire or just ripped up or whatever. And like, of course, being queer at the time was very taboo,
Yes.
as we know during that time. But I'll get more into that part of the story later. It fits in later.
So she doesn't mention any sort of like romantic life within her memoirs even?
No, not that I could see or find out.
She's like,
I didn't read the memoir. All cards on the table. I didn't read her memoir. I read a couple articles. That's all I got. No, but there was no mention of her love life.
Got it. Okay. She's not like, I was macking on that lady.
Right.
it.
Just necking with all those biddies.
Yeah.
You know?
She coined that term. Yeah.
So we have her passing the civil service exam and doing great, kicking butt.
Amazing.
And so then Sarah was soon stationed in Hell's Kitchen, not the restaurant or the TV show, to help lower the mortality rate of that neighborhood.
Okay.
And this is where I thought that Hell's Kitchen was a borough. It's not. No. It's a neighborhood. Found that out. And then I dove down.
I like that was your fucking rabbit hole. Also, did you not know the 5 boroughs before that?
No. Well, I knew like Queens, because that's where Spider-Man's from.
Okay, keep going. Do you know all 5 of them now?
Queens, Bronx.
Yeah.
Manhattan. Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And what's it start with?
S.
Staten Island?
I think so.
Staten Island, baby.
I'm pretty sure that's the 5th one.
I don't know.
You did all of this research on boroughs, and the only place that has boroughs is New York.
Look, when I say I did all of this research and the nuggets that my brain will keep inside, not that many.
No, don't know.
Do you think I care about the boroughs of New York?
You'll just take the accent.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so Sarah stationed in Hell's Kitchen.
Sorry, yes.
Not the restaurant or TV show. Now, Hell's Kitchen, not the restaurant or TV show, might sound familiar to you since it's the home of Marvel's Daredevil.
Yes. That's why it sounded familiar to me.
That's why it sounded familiar to me. But the sad news...
If you ever need to know the differences between Devin and I, just listen to that sentence again.
There we go. The sad news about Hell's Kitchen, not the restaurant or TV show, was that 4,500 people were dying every week.
Oh my God.
Which is why SJB's work was so important.
4,500 people were dying
every week.
Just in Hell's Kitchen?
Just in Hell's Kitchen. That's fucked
crazy.
Up. Yeah, that's terrible.
I mean, it runs along the waterfront, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if, I didn't know if it went all the way to water, but I'm pretty sure it does.
It does. Whatever, so if you're on Manhattan, whatever, like the north or I guess the west river is.
It's the Hudson.
Okay, that one. They are dying from typhoid fever, measles, dysentery, and many other contagious diseases that were just running rampant through the Lower East Side.
But also, can you imagine just like dysentery running rampant
Yeah.
in Manhattan?
It was so disgusting and dirty.
When people are like, I want to see it back then. I don't.
No.
God, that sounds disgusting.
Right?
Disgusting. I saw a clip about Scotland even. They're like, oh yeah, like you wouldn't want to walk up this hill. That's why they built this, because there were no bathrooms.
Really, they were just tossing shit out the window and it was rolling down the hill. It's disgusting.
Because part of you thinks, and this might be a lot, so warning, but part of you thinks that like it's just going to be like kind of washed into water. But like some of it I'm sure is like looser, but some of it might just be like solid.
Yeah.
And that's horrifying.
Yeah. That's got a log rolling down the hill.
That smell must be so pungent.
Yeah.
So
it
intense.
sure was.
He says, speaking from experiences, his eyes set back. It sure was. Yeah, exactly.
So that's all the diseases that were happening in the Lower East Side.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Now, what's also terribly sad is that about a third of those weekly deaths were babies, were little infant children. And this is where Sara would focus her work. She wanted to reduce the infant mortality rate of Hell's Kitchen, not the TV show or restaurant.
I swear to God, you and your fucking bits. But also, she really wanted to make up for that failed class.
Oh, she sure did. She was, I will never fail ever again.
Yeah.
And she didn't.
The subtitle to her memoir is One Failed Class.
So, Sara, with a squad of nurses, started to train mothers in the neighborhood and how to better care for their children. That's where she started out.
Nice.
She's like, let's go to the source, train the moms.
Nice.
She taught them with her squad of nurses how to clothe them better, keep them cool during the hot summers, feed them a good diet, keep them clean, and even keep them from suffocating in their sleep. There was just such minimal knowledge of how to better take care of your child that she was like, we have to start with the basics.
In 1900?
Yeah, this is like I'm going to say 1902-ish.
That's been that we didn't have like some sort of like educational aspect to childcare. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, well, like think about it. Like there's still like a frontier going on essentially.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
That's wild.
Because my next note is, remember, this was the turn of the century. Like, yeah, so like it's just such minimal knowledge that we all take for granted today. It's crazy. Sara and her team also wound up setting up clean milk stations to give out safe to consume milk. Commercial milk that was distributed was often contaminated or mixed with other substances to improve color and maximize profit. I don't believe the FDA was around in 1902.
Right.
So they were just trying to churn whatever they could to make all the money.
Put some paint in that.
Yeah, they would put like chalky water into it, you know? Terrible.
I hate that.
Sara even wound up developing an infant formula for working women and those who were unable to breastfeed. Now, this isn't the first formula to be invented, but it is still very noteworthy.
That's great.
Because there was even like ancient civilization, like I think like some Native American tribes were like, yeah, this is like some type of baby formula.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I kind of dove down that rabbit hole. I was like, this is a whole other story. But yeah, so she didn't invent baby formula, but she did invent a
baby formula. Got it.
For this situation. So that was the basics that she was like, let's start here.
Sure.
Now there's some other like advanced things that she was like, okay, we got to tackle this now. So Sara was also heavily aided in the prevention of infant blindness.
Why were all these babies going blind?
Well, it was a surprisingly common issue at the time.
What?
Caused by gonorrhea bacteria transmitted during birth. Yeah.
Horrifying.
So you just get gonorrhea on your eyes and you go blind. You know.
You know where I hate getting gonorrhea. Let me tell you. That's awful.
Yeah.
I guess you don't think that you could transfer that during birth. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean,
why wouldn't you be able to?
It's in there. You know what I mean?
It's all up in that biz. Mm-hmm. And then the baby's all up in that biz, coming out of that biz.
Stop saying biz.
So at the time, to treat this, babies were given drops of silver nitrate in their eyes to prevent blindness.
Okay.
Now, however, BB, or before Baker, the bottles that contained the silver nitrate were often unsanitary or would contain doses too concentrated that would wind up doing more harm than good to the baby. So Sara wound up designing new containers that held just a single dose of silver nitrate made out of antibiotic beeswax, which helped the medication remain uncontaminated and be the appropriate dosage.
Incredible.
Right?
Do you know what's wild to me?
Yeah.
Is that she's like, I'm a medical professional. And then all of a sudden she's like, I'm actually just going to invent a bunch of shit and like become a chemist as well. And you're just like, what?
Like, I need to figure out all these intricate ways to provide better care.
Right. I was like, my PCP doesn't do that.
What the fuck?
Right. Next time I see her, so like, what have you invented lately?
Right. Where's your antibiotic beeswax?
Where's your silver nitrate?
It's in the goddamn pills you take.
Yeah.
There's advanced medical things that we don't have to use silver nitrate anymore.
I'm like, yeah, but did you make it? I'm just saying. Just asking the questions.
So because of all of Sara's efforts, infant blindness decreased from 300 babies per year to only 3 per year in just 1 year of all of her efforts.
That's insane.
Right. Dropped by, I don't know, what is that? 20, 200%?
99%?
99%?
Well, it's 300 to 3.
It's some percent. Someone will do that.
You're the math guy here. You're left brain. I'm right brain.
So.
Yeah. 3 is 1%, which means it drops 99%. Yeah, that's what you were trying to say.
All right, so it's 1%. All right, drop 99% over here.
Thank you.
All right. So Sarah's kicking butt. Sarah's kicking butt, saving lives, and reducing infant mortality rate. But she still has a roadblock. Midwives weren't fully trained medical professionals.
Oh.
Often at that time, midwives were being, and still today, midwives were being used to deliver babies, particularly in cases where women weren't comfortable with a male doctor.
Sure.
Helping them through the process. Totally makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So Sara spent time convincing New York City to issue licenses for midwives to ensure that they knew what they were doing, give them a little credibility, making sure that like these women were trained and actually able to help these women giving birth.
Yeah.
Kind of makes sense.
Hindsight 2020.
Right. And on top of all of that, Sara also formed the Little Mothers League.
Cute.
This program taught 12 to 16-year-old girls how to better care for their infant siblings while their parents worked or were ill or whatever.
Oh, wow.
Now, some people are like, this is a brainwashing program, but it wasn't. It like people were thinking it was like, oh, this program is just like brainwashing them, making these teens want to be moms. But it was just, no, they're receiving quality medical education that a lot of folks, including medical students, weren't receiving at the time. So it was just like a better way to help tend to the neighborhood.
Well, and I think that's also like imperative today. Mm-hmm. Like I think about the amount of families that have to go work, and
right.
Oftentimes the older sibling that might only be like 3 years older is taking care of the younger. And if I don't know how to help a baby that's choking, I don't know like what signs, you know what I mean? It's not a matter of, if anything, it's probably a deterrent.
Right.
To be like, I don't want to do all this.
Right.
Jesus Christ.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
No, like my sister made me mac and cheese, you know.
And that and this, same thing.
Exactly
same thing. They start with that.
This is a blue box. Here you go.
This is 1 tablespoon of butter.
Mm-hmm. So by 1915, 25,000 girls were enrolled into the Little Mothers League.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was a very successful program for them. Okay. Now, we have the infant mortality rate down.
Mm-hmm.
Infant blindness is down. Access to clean milk, knowledge of best practices, and midwives are licensed.
Gorgeous. It's also insane that this is only in Hell's Kitchen.
Right. This is all just in that little neighborhood.
Right.
But what about all the older children?
Yes.
Kids are still getting sick. Like we've tackled the babies.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
just football tackle them.
One's trying to stand, and here comes Devin. Just got him.
So the older kids are still getting sick.
Yeah.
Sarah looked at the issue and simply said, schools should have medical staff in the building.
Oh.
Another crazy simple idea that just wasn't thought of at the time.
Is it at the end? Do you tell me that this one was a time traveler? Like, is that what's happening here?
That'd be crazy.
This is a
cool.
conspiracy
Right.
theory. Yeah. That's wild. Okay.
So she wound up working to get a doctor and nurse in every school that would routinely check the kids for infestations of any kind.
Yeah.
Either it be infection or I even mentioned lice here. This made it so head lice and trachoma, which is an eye infection, became almost non-existent in the schools where it had once ran rampant.
Wow.
Crazy.
That's nuts.
Yeah, right?
Oh, yeah. So when she tackled, because now she's moving on to older adults, when she tackled babies, was that all within like what time frame? Like a year, 2 years? So I know you said like obviously the rate dropped when I was right and said 90%. But then like how long was that before she turned her attention?
I believe so. The latest date that not the latest date.
Yeah.
But like she retires by 1923.
Oh,
so
okay.
like, between 1901 and 1923 is when all of this is kind of happening.
Got it. So then there's some probably overlap and things like that.
Right.
Okay.
There wasn't a lot of like specific cutoff dates of like when she was tackling each project. It was just kind of all piled on.
She was just like, I started here and then kind of morphed here and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
She's
makes
like,
sense.
oh, this would work here. I can train these people to do this and like send them on their way. Kind of.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. If I usually like to give hard dates to have a nice timeline of the story, but there wasn't a lot.
Sure.
Cool. So that she's able to help the older kids now.
Mm-hmm.
Able to help the older kids now.
Mm-hmm.
Able to.
Nice.
Welcome back. What do you know with Nick and Devin? I'm Devin.
And I'm Nick.
Thanks for being here, everybody. Now, Nick, I have a question for you.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you our titular question right off the bat.
Sure.
We kind of talked about this previously, but what do you know about Typhoid Mary?
Typhoid Mary. I know that she was the fire starter to typhoid in the U.S. Immigrated from Ireland to New York, if I'm not mistaken. And there might be a dotted line lineage to my husband.
We got to get him on Ancestry.com.
We'll find out about that. Yeah, we actually never went back on that. He has it because he got it for us for a present.
I have to imagine her.
I'm sure it's
her
not.
DNA is on there.
Right. Like, I'm sure it's not. It's like a common name in
especially for
Ireland.
Irish
Yeah. So I'm sure it's like a distant cousin, but it's not like a direct lineage.
Yeah,
that's what
fair.
I'm throwing out there. I also don't want to be like married to the lineage of Typhoid Mary. Yeah.
Fair. Well, you're not too far off.
Okay.
So Typhoid Mary, or also known Mary Mallon, was her real name. Was the first known carrier of typhoid that was asymptomatic or a healthy carrier of the disease.
Oh, I didn't realize she didn't even know.
Yeah. We're all kind of familiar with
Sneaky.
asymptomatic from 2020.
Thank you.
She caused several outbreaks. And while she was working as a cook, infected more than 50 people. And at least 3 of those people that she infected died.
Oh, God.
At least on record.
She's a
There could
murderer.
have been many more.
Do you think that would hold up in court as like manslaughter?
Yeah, actually, I
Does
think
she
it
get
does.
convicted or charged?
Kind of, not officially charged.
Oh, don't they like banish her? They're like, you're kind of exiled.
We'll
get there. Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. They don't like strand her on some remote island.
Right.
They kind of do, but not in that way.
They built her a trash island. Like, you stay here.
So Mary, of course, wasn't the only one to spread the disease, but she was unique in her lack of symptoms for the disease. So in 1907, Mary, a cook at the time, had a weird visitor at her place of work. Someone claiming to work for the health department wanting to collect blood and urine samples.
Excuse me?
to be like, why, like, do you have typhoid? Why aren't you showing symptoms of typhoid? Like, people have gotten sick from eating at your restaurant. What's going on?
But like, if a health inspector walked into my restaurant and was like, "I'm going to need blood and urine from everyone," I'd be like, "What the fuck
Show me your badge."
going on?"
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
So, Mary was like, nah. Like you just said,
Right.
nah.
I think I'm good.
And fled. And was hunted through the neighborhood by police and the health department agent.
What?
It took 2 days
my God.
before Mary was apprehended and taken by force to a local hospital.
That's crazy.
That's where she was able to, or that's where the officials were able to get the blood and urine samples from her. The labs confirmed presence of typhoid bacteria in Mary, and she wound up being quarantined for 3 years.
Oh my God.
By the health department.
Where did they quarantine her? Just like in an apartment or something?
I think they quarantined her at like a hospital area.
Oh God. Could you imagine just being stuck in a hospital room for 3 years?
I hate being there for 3 hours. Like, fuck.
It'd make you a little uneasy.
Well, I've just spent a lot of time in
That's fair.
hospitals for various reasons.
Touché.
Not for myself.
Yeah. Fair.
So this would not be the only time Mary would be on the run from the health department. After being released, she like put her hand up, promised that she would never work in the food industry again, and was given a job as a laundress.
Okay.
Now, for those of you who don't know, I didn't know, you don't make as much money washing clothes as you do cooking for the upper middle class. So in 1915, Mary returned to the culinary industry, causing another typhoid outbreak.
God, damn it. They gave you a chance.
They gave her a
They
chance.
gave you a chance.
Once again, the health department tracked down Mary Mallon and quarantined her for the rest of her life. Oh my God. This time she was quarantined by the state, not by the health department. Oh. So a little bit more intense.
Yeah. I will say, you know what, now that we're talking about it, the stubbornness that she has, I think it might be a direct lineage. I think that tracks.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
A little family resemblance.
Right, exactly.
So in 1915, Sara Josephine Baker caught typhoid Mary for the second time to stop the spread of typhoid fever.
Got her.
Yeah.
Got her. Now, I think there should be some fan fiction about Sara Josephine Baker and typhoid Mary.
There probably is.
There probably some like gross section of Reddit has written this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sara Josephine Baker was the health department inspector that caught her both times and quarantined her both times.
That's incredible.
Fucking crazy.
She was probably like, "What the fuck are you doing? What are you doing?"
So after all this, Sara was gaining plenty of renown, not only in the U.S., but across the globe for her work on children's health, and becoming the first woman to receive a doctorate in public health in 1917.
Oh, wow.
Busy lady.
Yeah.
In a New York Times interview, Sara stated it was, quote, 6 times safer to be a soldier in the trenches of France than to be a baby born in the United States.
Horrifying.
End quote.
I think that's still true.
Probably. She had a lot of renown, and like her words carried a lot of weight behind them. So that quote in the New York Times, she called out the high rate of young men being declared ineligible for draft during the Great War due to poor health, and this helped spark motivation in improving the health of children nationwide.
Wow.
It was like, our kids can't even go off to fight, like go die in a war. They're dying too quickly here in the States because of the medical conditions.
Jesus.
So she kind of pushed for that.
Yeah.
Kind of like you're doing it for the draft, but like you're just calling you're using the draft, this as terrible war to call out our station at home. So I mentioned briefly earlier that it is highly speculated that Sara was a lesbian.
Mm-hmm.
Most, if not all, of her personal papers were destroyed, which makes confirmation kind of impossible.
Sure.
But there are a few things we can confirm that lead us to speculate this. We can confirm that Sara spent a lot of her life with Ida Alexa Ross Wiley.
Okay.
That's
what a name.
She's a novelist, scriptwriter, and a, quote, woman-orientated woman, end quote.
Interesting.
They had an apartment together in New York, eventually buying a house together in Princeton, New Jersey.
Ooh.
And they wound up getting another housemate. Dr. Louise Pierce moved into that house with them, and they became locally known as the Girls, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah. Ready for that sitcom.
Yeah. That's what the Golden Girls is based off of.
Exactly.
So Wiley wrote that 3 professional women, quote, living amicably and even gaily together was an odd phenomenon, but we are all 3 quite reasonably happy. They kind of recognized how odd it is to the society around them.
Sure.
That they were all just like 3 older women living together.
Living gaily
Right.
together.
But, well, in her time it was Gaily, so I don't know. We got that going.
We got that going. We got that going for us.
So Sarah lived during a time of transition. It was changing from this Victorian idea and tradition of intimate friendships between women to this villainous new psychosexual orientation idea of lesbianism. So it makes sense as to why like Sarah hid a lot of that side of her personal life from the public.
Sure.
Pre-turn of the century, it was like, yeah, like you can just live with your friends, like it's totally cool. But then like we get into this like, oh, you could be a lesbian, and that's terrible.
That's horrifying.
Right. So it was just kind of hiding this taboo, and that's kind of why we don't wholly know whether or not she truly was a lesbian or not. But
sure,
most people are like, she was a lesbian.
That's
it's kind of like a queer icon.
It's interesting because this is what, like towards the 20s, right?
Yeah. 1923, I think, is by the time they buy the house in New Jersey.
Well, and like thinking about the J.C. Leyendecker episode, just like the kind of openness that was allowed in New York for the queer community. Yeah. But like lesbians almost feel like, I guess, a little ostracized even within that potentially. Yeah. So that's interesting. I mean, there's always a duality, especially in the beginnings of like major society and then kind of the underbelly of it. But
yeah, I think it kind of followed along with like the transition I was talking about kind of followed along with the Leyendecker story, where it was, the roaring 20s, everyone was living their life, doing great. And then we have like World War II, etc. Yeah. Because she doesn't die till 1945, so she like has another 20 years after her retirement. And like that kind of era of pulling back to more conservative time.
Got it.
I think that kind of was this transition that she was talking about.
Okay.
But that's all we got.
Heard.
So Sarah did a lot in her life. That's all I have about her lesbianism.
Okay. Got it.
There isn't a lot, but I wanted to mention it. So Sarah did a lot in her life and continued to work even after her retirement in 1923. She became the first woman to be a professional representative to the League of Nations, serving on the Health Committee.
Wow.
League of Nations was like the pre-United Nations, for those of you who don't know. She became the president of the American Medical Women's Association, wrote 4 books, an autobiography, and 250 articles.
Jesus.
And then she also participated in several different groups, including over 25 medical societies and the New York State Department of Health. She was doing a lot, physically.
Yeah.
But then, unfortunately, Sarah Baker does die from cancer in February of 1945 at the age of 71.
Yeah.
Sarah was known for many things and did wonders for the medical field. She is an inspiration to many and regarded as a phenomenal queer icon.
That's incredible. I mean, she really just like set, not of course like children's health, but like that really sets everyone up for the future. You know what I mean?
Yeah. To have all of these simple ideas to better take care of your children, that was like new technology for them back then. It's interesting to think about.
Well, and like how much she accomplished even before we're kind of getting into a suffragette movement. You know what I mean? Like she's writing departments, she's writing articles and books and like making decisions and
serving on the League of Nations,
catching Typhoid Mary. You know what I mean? Like twice. And I just think that that's incredible. Like that's absolutely astonishing.
That's Sara Josephine Baker.
Dang.
And a little bit about Typhoid Mary.
And just a touch.
A little bit.
A little bit. Yeah. Well, thanks, Dev. Thanks for bringing us through that.
Hey.
That's incredible.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing, too. Thanks for watching. And if you don't follow us on anywhere on the internet, shame on you.
Shame.
But you can follow us. You can fix that mistake by following us at WDYK_podcast all across the interwebs. And, hit us up. Say hey.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all I got for you. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Thanks, Nick.
Bye.
Bye.